This is going to be the first half of the 5B notes. Two lines are considered parallel if they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. So if I draw this, I draw one line here, draw another line here, you can see they both have the same slope, yet they're not intersecting, and so that's why they're parallel. They have different y-intercepts. Here's one y-intercept, there's the other, but they have the same slope. Now, two lines are considered perpendicular if the slopes are opposite or negative reciprocals of each other. Now, if I draw a perpendicular line, it's going to look something like this. It's going to make right angles. Like that's a right angle and that's a right angle. Okay? So, if this slope right here is 2/3, the negative reciprocal, so this slope would be negative 3/2. So what I do is I flip the fraction and change the sign. So, and they're going to be asking what's perpendicular to some of the numbers in here, or the slopes. So if I were to have a slope of, like, let's say negative 3/5, what's perpendicular to that is positive 5/3. And so, and they'll try to trick you. They're going to say, what's perpendicular to positive 2? Now, it's not really a fraction, so you can't flip it. So what you have to do is you have to imagine it's 2/1, and then you have to flip it and change the sign. So now this would be negative 1/2. These two are perpendicular to each other. Okay? And there'll be more questions on that. The point-slope equation of a line, and we're going to need this formula a lot. It's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we're going to be using this point-slope formula to find the slope-intercept form. And just as a reminder, that's y equals mx plus b. All right, so now the next thing is we're going to be evaluating. So now this is f of 4. All that means is that x is equal to 4. So if my function is f of x equals 2x minus 4, I'm just going to put 4 in front. So it's 2 times 4 minus 4, which is 4. If I put in negative 5, that'll be 2 times negative 5 minus 4. And you type in your calculator and you get negative 14. Please make sure you can type those in. I highly recommend using the parentheses to do this. It will eliminate a lot of mistakes. So for the next question, the formula now is f of x, 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. So let's put 3 in first. So it'll be 3 times 3 squared minus 2 times 3 plus 1. I have to do the exponent first, so that's 9 times 3, that's 27 minus 6 plus 1. 27 minus 6 is 19, is 21. 21 plus 1 is 22. So now, the next one here, I'm going to put negative 3 in, squared, minus 2 times negative 3 plus 1. Now, the first number is going to be the same, because negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9, and that's 27. But the second one's going to be different. Negative times a negative is plus 6 plus 1. So this equals 34. Please try to type both these in. Make sure you know how to use your calculator. Then they will show in one with a letter, and I must admit these get a little annoying. 3, then I have to put in here, it's negative 2a squared minus 2 times negative 2a plus 1. I have to do negative 2a squared first, which is really 4a squared. Negative times a negative is plus 4a plus 1. And I still can multiply 3 times 4a squared, so that's 12a squared plus 4a plus 1. That's a weird looking answer for us, but that's what they're looking for. Okay. This number 5 in the homework, I'm going to put this in the 5B graph video, because I really want to show you on the in the program, and I can't do that right at the moment, but I will show it to you there. So finding the slope and the y-intercept. This is just like the 5A questions that we were doing earlier. We have to solve for y. So I must subtract 8x first. I get negative 7y equals negative 8x plus 21. I divide everything by negative 7. I get positive 8/7 x minus 3. So my slope is 8/7, and my y-intercept is 0, negative 3. Now, everybody panics when they see fractions, but there is no need. We have a calculator that's going to do all the work. Remember, this minus sign is with the 1/3. The 4 is positive, so I'm going to subtract 4. So I get negative 1/3 y equals 8x minus 4. There's many ways of doing this, but we always divide by what's attached to the variable. So I'm going to divide by negative 1/3. Now, if we're dividing by a fraction, we're really multiplying by the reciprocal, so please feel free to do that. But again, the calculator is going to do all the work, and so this is negative 24x, and this is plus 12. So my slope is negative 24, and my y-intercept is 0, 12. Alright, now finding the slope on these. There is no work to be done, you just have to know how to do this. For y equals 5, if you remember, that's a horizontal line, and that is 0, I'll write it out, 0 slope, or you can just type in the number 0. This is vertical slope, which is not defined. And you have to have those memorized. 0 slope for a horizontal line, and vertical is not defined. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this on here right now. And I'm going to do the negative 5/3 plus x. Negative 5/3 x plus 3. We're going to use the slope and the y-intercept. So now, the first step in all these things is we have to solve for y, but luckily that's already done. So the first step, we're going to plot the y-intercept. And the second step is use the slope. And we got to think of rise over run. So since the y-intercept is 3, so I go, remember, this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. So I go 1, 2, 3, and I plot my point. Now if I think of negative 5 over 3, that means rise over run. Now, this is kind of government speak. I'm going to rise negative 5. So if I rise negative 5, that means I go down 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I have to run 3. 1, 2, 3. I plot my point, and there is my line. Okay, that is using slope and y-intercept to graph. This next equation right here, I don't know why that line jumped down there, but I'm going to get rid of it. So I have to solve for y. So I have to add the 2x over. So it's negative 5y equals 2x plus 10. Then I divide everything by negative 5. And I end up with y equals negative 2/5 x minus 2. So my y-intercept is now negative 2. So I go down to plot that. Now my rise over run is negative 2 over 5. So I want to rise negative 2. So go down 2 and then go over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plot my point. And then, that's a wiggly line, but that's a quote-unquote straight line here. And again, I'm going to show you how to use the graphing tool on there to draw this out perfectly. And so my last one here, strangely enough, they're all negative slopes here, but if I solve for y, I subtract 2x over here. So I get y equals negative 2x minus 1. So my slope, y-intercept is negative 1. Now there's no fraction here, so what I have to do is I have to put this over 1. So when I graph this, I go down 2, 1, 2, and then I go over just 1. Plot my point, and there's my graph. Okay, that's how you're going to graph with using the slope and the y-intercept. Okay. And then this last two questions I'm going to do for the first half of this, because that'll be about enough for about half here, is are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So now, for the first equation, and we're going to still have to solve for the letter y, because I got to solve for the slope. So I have 4x plus 8y equals negative 3. So I'm going to subtract 4x from each side. So I got 8y equals negative 4x minus 3. So I divide everything by 8. So I get y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3/8. So my slope is negative 1/2. Now, I'm going to solve this one, 2x plus 4y equals 4. Now, if I come up with negative 1/2 when I solve this next equation, it's going to be parallel. If I do the negative reciprocal of this, that's positive 2 over 1. If I come up with that slope, it's perpendicular. Now, if it's neither one of those two answer, that's when it's the neither. So let's solve for y again. So minus 2x minus 2x. 4y equals negative 2x plus 4. Divide everything by 4, I get negative 1/2 x plus 1. So the slopes are the same, so they are parallel. So this next question, I'm going to do the same thing. So we have 2y plus 8 equals x. As always, solve for y here. So it's 2y equals x minus 8. Divide everything by 2. I get y equals 1/2 x minus 4. So if I come up with m equals 1/2, that means it's parallel. If I do the negative reciprocal, that should be negative 2 over 1. And so that would be perpendicular. So let's solve for 6x plus 3y equals 5. I'm going to subtract 6x over. So I get 3y equals negative 6x plus 5. Divide everything by 3. I get y equals negative 2x plus 5/3. So it's negative 2. And so now that matches this one. So this is the perpendicular one. So it is perpendicular. Okay. And we're going to stop right now because we're going to find the equations of line next.